Are you ready?
Good news, everyone!
I'm the surprise in your cereal box. I'm
great! Everybody else sucks!
I said, are you ready?
Yes, sir, random kid I just met.
It's Ciely.
Hooray! People are paying attention to me.
That's right! You're always blaming me! So, my reputation exceeds me.
It's time to check the link.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You know what? You just made the list.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
What is up, you ducks? All in football on FTN Fantasy. If you're looking at the video, couldn't get it to work today. Appreciate Foxy, producer. It wasn't his fault. Like, just StreamYard was, it's weird today. But whatever it might be. Code all in still gets you 20% off at FTN, where you can check out Chris Meaney and all the great hockey advice if you want to win some money and bits and follow Chris Meaney. Are you plus 100 units yet?
No, I'm actually, it's been very inconsistent. We had a really good day yesterday, so hopefully we can continue to ride some momentum. But yeah, it might be two things. Somebody said they watched the show on Game Plus last week and they said we were brothers. At the time, we both had, facial hair, similar backgrounds. So we're not today because we're on other sides. But also, it may be my bad because I'm logged into our back end. So I don't know. That may have something to do with me just being on that left side. I have no idea. Either way.
Yeah, hockey show yesterday. Back end? Really, Chris? I mean, you missed the show yesterday talking about Uranus. We're going to go down this road again? So, no,
yeah, I did miss you guys yesterday. It's obviously must-watch TV. I'm going to have to go back and check that one out a little bit later on.
I don't know if that made it all the way to Canada on Game Plus, but welcome for everybody that is watching. And, yeah, over at the Athletic, my rankings are out, including, Chris, my top 25 Nintendo 64 games. Do you have a favorite?
So I was always a Mario guy, whether it was,
this is why I'm
Super
wearing
Mario.
This is the
or just
Konami Code shirt, by the way.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is from original Nintendo, but still.
The original Nintendo. So I'll say I wasn't a big N64 guy. I was like Super Nintendo.
All right, you're off the show.
My
We're
jam
continuing without Chris Meaney today.
But I obviously, there's a couple things, Super Mario and then Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, all fantastic. GoldenEye was great, but if you had people
Perfect
around,
Dark
I think
better.
Perfect Dark was better as an individual game. But man, GoldenEye was a lot of fun, and I know a lot of people may think it's overrated or they like it a little bit more than they probably should, but it was fantastic when you had a couple people together and you could just have some fun with all the random rooms.
I got to 25 and I was surprised. I still wanted to keep going. Like Excite Bike didn't make the list. If anybody ever played Blast Corps, that's surprisingly a hell of a fun game.
I did not play that. No.
Congratulations to Casey. Maybe got his wisdom teeth out. So hopefully you're.
Oh wow.
I don't know if you've ever done the wisdom teeth. Do you have yours? Or did you get yours yet?
No.
We're gonna talk football. But sorry, I had mine, but I had mine where you stay awake. And they pull them out just from the numbing, and you hear it, and to hear the crunching, and as they're it's it's definitely it's basically like pliers, and they're like it almost felt like they're pushing down when they're pulling out. But we're gonna talk fantasy football rankings. That's what we're here for you. Look, see, even Soup Talk. Why'd y'all switch sides? We're not. Chris is messing it up today. It's all Chris's fault. So
it's gotta be me. I don't know.
It's gonna be me. Just like this. They were gonna sing that song.
I thought we only heard that in May. It's gonna be May.
Oh, JT. Wow. I didn't even catch that. Wow.
That's the only time I ever hear people say that. Yeah.
Should we talk football? It's been about 3 minutes. We should probably talk.
I guess.
Football.
Yesterday was pretty exciting.
By the way, I do appreciate. I don't know if anybody caught that. You don't say Mario. You say Mario. So if anybody caught
Mario.
that. But...
Yeah. I know. Mario.
There you go. It's me, Mario. There you go. Let's talk Joe Mixon. People seem pretty upset with Joe Mixon. The thing is, Joe Mixon scored 9+ points in all but one game. He's RB14. He hasn't been top 10 or even Joe Mixon from last year. The offensive line hasn't been as much as an upgrade as we had hoped for. So Joe Mixon, I know you're probably not in a league where you can bench him, but here's the question is on the flip side. If you're sitting there where you could get Joe Mixon for top 10 running back value, would you trade him away? If you're sitting on Joe Mixon and you can get, or if you don't have, if you're not sitting on Joe Mixon, you can get that. If you want Joe Mixon and you can get him for less than top 10, when did you buy low? Like, which way are you going? You're trying to get Mixon or you're trying to get rid of him?
I think I'd try to get him. Like if I needed an RB and I needed like as an RB2 or just some depth, like he can definitely be had. As you said, people are upset about him. And I know you get this all the time when you do your rankings, you know, late on Tuesday night, and it's all the comments are probably about Joe Mixon. What do I do with Joe Mixon? What do I do with Joe Mixon? I'm getting a lot of that as well. He hasn't been efficient at all this year, and I don't know if he will be. Like the offensive line is still brutal. Burrow's still getting hit, sacked a ton. Barkley's thirsty as hell, and Joe Mixon is still at least catching passes out of the backfield. Like that's something he's doing, which is he's got at least 3 catches in every game. He got 7 balls last week. You know, there's no chase for a little bit. So yeah, would I trade him for Travis Etienne? Man, Barkley is real. Like bye week for Barkley, just workhorse for the first 8 weeks of the season, 9 weeks of the season, and now just taking a break and drinking all the water in your house.
I'm with you. Oh my god! Like the thing she drank like the entire bowl.
That was great.
Yeah. I'm on the flip side. Yeah, I can't even think straight now. I was just like so shocked.
I would take Travis Etienne for
over Joe Mixon.
Yeah, could you do that? Would you be able to get Etienne for Mixon? Probably not. You probably couldn't.
I actually think I put Ken Walker as a sell high. A very long explanation so people don't lose their mind over Ken Walker. But the quick bullet point version is that if you watched last week's game and the week before that too, and you saw Ken Walker, is the fact that he is running to the offensive line. He has a lot of short and not big yards. If you actually go to Football Outsiders, like you don't even have to. People get caught up in metrics. People get caught up in watching film. Like, you know me, I'm always 50-50. I watch the games. I analyze the players, my own opinion. I use metrics to back up what I see. But Football Outsiders, he's been stuffed 26% of the time. That's second. The only person who's been stuffed more is James Robinson. I'm not saying Ken Walker's not a top 15, even top 20, well, definitively top 20, top 15 running back. What I'm saying is somebody sees him as top 10. A lot of people see him as top 10. So here's where I'm going with this, Chris. I generally don't like wash trades, like 1-for-1 evens, like what did it really do for your team? But if you could sell Ken Walker and get Joe Mixon, would you do it? If you could sell Ken Walker.
Yeah, I think I could get behind that. I see what you're saying. Yeah, he hasn't been super efficient. I definitely saw that in the Giants game. The Giants did a really good job with him. And I will say he does break some tackles. Like, I get it. A lot of people really do like him. Let's just look at the schedule. We know that the Bengals...
the Bengals don't have a great schedule. It's hit and miss the rest of the way.
Yeah, and the bye week's coming up, right? Which is like
a bit of an issue.
If
you're looking at fantasy playoffs, I mean, you're looking at the fact that Cleveland, amazing. Wonderful matchup, as best as you can get to get in the playoffs. By the way, that's week 14, not the first week of your playoffs anymore. Then you get Tampa Bay, New England. You're actually good. You can run against New England this year. But then Buffalo in your championship game. So it's kind of hit or miss. You don't get the Baltimore game in week 18, unfortunately, too.
Right. Well, the one thing I do like is what I said earlier is he's catching passes in the backfield. So it's kind of making up for some of the lack of efficiency that Joe Mixon has. And also, you know, we have this tool at FTN where it's what they have for fantasy points and expected, whether you believe or not. It's kind of like BABIP in baseball when things maybe turn around, but maybe they don't. Like it's possible that they don't. But the reason he has a higher expected fantasy points compared to what he has is because he's getting all the work inside the red zone. Like heading into the week, he was number 1 among running backs in red zone rushing attempts inside the 20, the 10, and the 5. He just hasn't been efficient, you know, punching that ball in. But, you know, again, if he's going to be a guy that catches 3 or 4 passes every week, that's something that Walker's not doing. So
I have another one for you. By the way, do you say regression both ways? Do you say his regression?
Yeah.
Now, so do I, but I know. I was on Pat. You saw Pat's show yesterday? You saw when he lost it?
I've heard him lose it before. What did he say to you?
I was like, well, if you want to say progression for some people out there, he's like, no. He's like, it's regret. I said, I know it's regression. I use the same thing, but like some people, they think of it negatively. He's like, no, I'm not going to say it the different way because you're a moron. Like it's just like, so he lost it. Yes, it was hilarious.
Love Mayo. Yeah, he'll tell you exactly how you feel. That's what we love about Pat.
So here's an interesting one. I mean, this is another potential buy and sell, and you know we're helping people out there. Trade deadline is getting close, but this also comes into play and starts and sits and everything like that. Jonathan Taylor. So he's part of a trade situation yesterday. Nyheim Hines is gone. We saw Deion Jackson be an RB1 when Jonathan Taylor and Hines were out because Deion Jackson was also catching passes. Nyheim Hines is out of the equation. Jonathan Taylor's banged up again. He has, it was like 80-something and 70-something yards the last 2 weeks. 70-something yards before getting banged up last week. But would you sell Ken Walker to get Jonathan Taylor, or do you think Jonathan Taylor is that concerning the rest of the year? And the second part of it is Jonathan Taylor still a must-start at this point right now?
Yes. I would get Taylor. I believe in the talent. I would get Taylor. Like if I had Walker and I can get Jonathan Taylor, I would just do it. I think it's a lot closer than what I never would have imagined, even 4 weeks ago, even debating between these two guys. Like I like Walker too. But yeah, give me Jonathan Taylor. Jack's probably going to catch he may take that Nyheim Hines role, but we could also see Taylor he could just catch a few balls to the backfield. Like I know it was just his first game with a young quarterback, but that's not out of the equation that he's not going to get 5 or 6 catches like he did the previous week where he had 7. So yeah, just give me Jonathan Taylor. But man, the Colts they're a complete mess.
By the way, and if I see one more person victory lapping, not taking Jonathan Taylor 101, I'm coming for people at this point. This is so annoying. Like the consent, nobody was saying definitively take Christian McCaffrey 1. We had the conversation on this show that if you want to take Christian McCaffrey, go right ahead, because if he's healthy the entire year, he can unseat the number 1. We had this conversation, but because of the injury risk
and reward.
And nobody expected Taylor to get banged up this many times. Like, Matt Ryan was ruining the offense too, but Jonathan Taylor's been hurt 3 times already this year. Look, Casey listened to me and took CMC, but I have not sat here once in victory lap CMC. You know why? Because I still had Taylor number 1. I had CMC 2 because of the risk, because CMC is now coming off 2 straight injuries. So, and the Panthers offense was doo-doo. And, part of it is like getting away from the Panthers offense.
Yeah. I didn't have any picks at 101. I think I would have went Taylor, but I probably would have went one of the wide receivers over CMC. Would that be wrong?
I was taking CMC over Kupp, but I did take Kupp in the flex leagues with the 4th pick when CMC was gone. So I was loving that. Who's now also banged up. You could have started drafts CMC, Saquon Barkley, and holy crap, enjoy your championship right there. But let's talk another trade situation, another running back who had gained and become into our circle of trust. Like he was there with us. Raheem Mostert was in our circle of trust. Speaking of injury history, they made a trade. They made 2. Yeah. Chase Edmonds gone, one of the most ineffective rushers this year. However, they bring in one of the most effective rushers this year. Granted, he was on the 49ers, but Jeff Wilson is now backing up Mostert. 2-part question for you, Chris. Are you concerned about Raheem Mostert? Is he a sell high? And then 2, you're not at least worried for this 1 week after we've seen all these running backs come in and basically not be a factor until the 2nd week, correct?
Yeah, correct. Again, looking at CBS top 10 traded players, Raheem Mostert is inside the top 5. I was actually a little bit surprised to see that. I don't know. A lot of people like Jeff Wilson, I guess. I think he's going to back up Raheem Mostert. Yeah, he's familiar with Raheem. He's familiar with Mike McDaniel. Like, it's just like San Fran all over in Miami. But I think Raheem's looked pretty good. I think he's looked like a really good running back. He's almost treated like a bell cow back. Wilson's not. He's had some games where he's catching passes to the backfield, but I don't think he's going to be like an automatic 3rd down, like 3rd and 6. Let's put out Jeff Wilson. That doesn't seem like. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Raheem is going to continue to be the lead. It's just about health. You said it. It's just about health with Raheem Mostert. They were getting nothing from Chase Edmonds. So why not get a guy that Mike is familiar with in Jeff Wilson? He's going to be able to understand the playbook, pick it up pretty quickly. He knows that he can fill in and be like a 20-touch running back in case something happens. But I think Raheem Mostert's done a really good job. And if somebody was willing to sell him, I'd be willing to buy. If I can get him as my RB2 and plug him as a flex the rest of the way, I think he's still going to be the lead.
Okay. I think he's still going to be lead. I think Jeff Wilson might eat a little bit in, but I think Jeff Wilson is now what he was with CMC, but even a little bit more. He's still a high-end backup. But we had Elijah Mitchell coming back, and now he's behind a running back who Barkley's really upset today, who's potentially even a bigger injury risk than CMC was. So, I think that Jeff Wilson, if you can hold on to him, I want to drop him out there. Here's one we do have to deal with. DeAndre Swift came back last week. We talked about him on Monday, but DeAndre Swift came back. Limited use, didn't look great, struggled some. Jamaal Williams continues to be a thing. But this is another week extended from the injury, coming back, second game back. What are you doing with DeAndre Swift? He has, on paper, good matchup at home against the Packers. So is DeAndre Swift ahead of Jamaal Williams, or should we be like following what is the truth so far, and that Jamaal Williams should be ranked in front of DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, I don't know if I can rank him ahead of Jamaal Williams. I think he has a higher ceiling than Jamaal Williams. When I was talking about red zone rushing attempts, looking at all the running backs, Jamaal Williams is right there among the leaders. He is the goal line back for this offense. I think it's good news that, for Swift that TJ Hawkinson got traded. Maybe a few more targets there for him inside the offense. But I think personally, if I had both, I'd probably play Swift this week against the Packers. But they're really close in my rankings. I think they're both, startable, low NRB2 flex plays. How do you feel about
play
Jamaal?
them versus
He's a pain in the butt.
He is, and he's not going away. I think most everybody, if anybody out there said Jamaal Williams was not going to cede more carries or touches this year, I'd love to see that. Like, congratulations on that call. But I think what I'm saying here is the majority, everybody thought that the split would be there. We just expected the split to lessen. Like, it would be more like, instead of like a 50-50, it would be more like a 65, maybe a 60 split. And that's not happening. So let me bring in a player who now has a trade situation, because this is where Raheem Hines went. Raheem Hines went to the Buffalo Bills. Devin Singletary has been similar to last year's late Devin Singletary, where he's getting 15, 16, 17 carries, a few targets and receptions in the passing game. Essentially been bell cow-ish, which has still resulted in only RB2 value, because do you know how many rushing touchdowns Devin Singletary has?
Probably 0, 1 maybe.
He has 0. Yeah. Very good. 0. So Singletary versus Swift versus Jamaal Williams. Go.
Singletary versus Swift versus Jamaal Williams. I think I play both Detroit backs over Singletary like this week. And I think Raheem Hines is a really interesting pickup, because the Bills have shown us that they want a pass-catching running back inside their offense. They tried to get J.D. McKissick, no dice. They drafted Cook in the second round. I guess they're not comfortable.
They use him as a rusher.
They use him as a rusher. The schedule is very soft down the stretch of the season. I
actually still like James Cook for this week.
Me too.
He's going to get that late run.
Yeah. I know. And I picked him up where I can and where I've just to stash him, because it is that Bills offense. It's such a nice offense. And like I said, it feels like they want a pass catching running back there, but I don't know. I guess the front office is not super thrilled with him. And maybe next year we're talking about him definitely differently, but I don't know, man. Raheem Hines is an experienced back, and I think he's very, very interesting.
I think he's a thorn in the side of Singletary, too.
Absolutely. I do not like this at all for Singletary.
Because Singletary, as a runner only in this backfield, which is, as we know, monopolized by Josh Allen, but also by Josh Allen throwing, 0 rushing touchdowns as the lead runner. 0.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking at here, is that, James Cook has a rushing touchdown. Did you know this? Actually, speaking of James Cook in the passing game, do you know how many targets he has on the season?
I don't think he has. I don't think he has many. I'd say like 6 or 7. I don't think he has many.
You're close. He has 8. 5 came in one game.
In one game? Was it with the blowout game? Was it a? It was a blowout game.
No. That was the game. That was the game they lost to Miami, 21-19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they ran like 90 plays. Yeah. Singletary's basically Miles Sanders from last year.
That's a really good point.
He's just a guy getting no touchdowns. And at this point last year, nobody wanted anything to do with Miles Sanders. So they were like playing him when they're only super desperate at the running back position.
Yeah. That's I completely agree. Yeah, Bubs noticed that the rankings on The Athletic got a facelift because we're using Fantasy Nation, which is Football Diehard. Shout out to Bob Harris and Emil Cadleck.
Yeah, nice.
The widget works better. I know they have buys and they don't have matchups. I asked them if he could add that, but it updates instantly, which is part of the reason. Like, we don't have to wait. There's been a delay. Like this past Sunday, I updated on Fantasy Pros, and 15 minutes later, it finally updated. And they're sitting there. Oh yeah. So it updates instantly, and I can edit non and PPR, which is the big thing, is that you can't edit PPR in Fantasy Pros, and people are like, why is this person so much different? It's like, he shouldn't be, but I can't edit it. It won't let me. So anyway, problems are fixed.
Bob's great.
And it works on Android. And it works. You can actually scroll on Android now. You don't have to do like the little 2-finger thing. So anyway,
hell yeah, the Android. Let's go. I like
Stupid
it.
Androids. Anyway, I don't care. Buy whatever phone you want. I don't care. Interesting. Jiggles actually pointed out, I was in the comments. Would you just go back to Cam Walker real quick? If I don't need running backs, but I do need wide receivers, I said sell Ken Walker for Devontae Adams in a buy low. Wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I would not even think twice about that one, Jiggles.
So James Conner. Don't know. It's like the Rashad Bateman thing. Like Michael Thomas actually is the better one. Like what's going on? Are you playing or not? Like are you done this year? Question mark. If James Conner plays, this is what. So I did Chris Harris's. Speaking of another Harris, I did Chris Harris's podcast, and I have James Conner in as of right now. I have him at 20, Chris. But this goes to something I've said on this show. I've said it in articles. The reminder that when the lead runner comes back and the person replacing him is playing good to great football, that tells you they're ready to trust him again. Like, put the incumbent back in. Eno Benjamin hasn't been good to great. He's had one great game, he's had one mediocre game, and he's had one stinker. So, if James Conner is back this week, is RB20 too high because it's not a guarantee that there just might be desperation? And then if Conner's out, where do you put Eno Benjamin? Because I think Darrell Williams gets more run this week.
Yeah, I think so too.
Not more run than Eno, more run than he had last week.
More run than he had last week. Yeah, I think he actually has more upside than Eno. I think he could run between the tackles a little bit better than Eno can. But Conner, it's tough, man. I just don't really know what to do with this guy. He hasn't been efficient. He wasn't efficient last year. He scored a bunch of touchdowns to really save a lot of his days. Yeah, it's a good comparison. He's basically Zeke. It's a good call. They get inside the red zone is definitely going to be him. I wonder if they just turn pass happy. Like, I don't know if it's because Connor's been out the past couple weeks, but even last week, they didn't even really try to run against Minnesota. I know the Vikings pushed the pace. This is a matchup against Seattle. It's a pretty good matchup. They've allowed 3 100-yard rushers already this season, the 6th most fantasy points to running backs. So I think it's a pretty good spot for him, but low NRB2. I would play him over guys like, just taking a look at my rankings, I play him over like any Jets running back, any Washington running back, any Chicago running back. That's kind of where I'm at with him. Probably any KC running back, I probably would do that
one for
as
you.
Well,
we're going to talk about a lot of those. How about over Kenyon Drake if there's no Gus Edwards?
I think I would play Kenyon Drake and probably hate myself for it.
Here's the thing. Hopefully we know Gus Edwards for Kenyon Drake's situation. Hopefully we know on Saturday. Reminder, it's the Monday Night Football game. Please. I don't want to use Kenyon Drake even with Gus Edwards out. Like, I don't want to do it. I hate the Drake. Everybody hates the Drake because it's when we use him, and it's like, now he's going to go out and rush 13 for 30, and Justice Hill is going to get the touchdown. You know it's coming. Kenyon Drake is only usable when we're not using him. So, his kids was what Kyle Pitts is this year. But that being said, if there's no Gus Edwards, you kind of have to use Kenyon Drake.
I think so.
And I think he's an RB2 only, low-end RB2. If Gus Edwards is still up in the air come Sunday, I would not wait to hope that Drake doesn't have to deal with Gus Edwards because Drake already has a terrible floor, let alone if Gus Edwards is active and even getting a few touches. So please don't wait on that. Would you go Eno Benjamin inside the 20s or that what I brought up about Darrell Williams? If Conner doesn't return, do you think that they're both now in the 30s?
Yeah, I'd say maybe Eno would be in the mid to late 20s, and then not too far behind would be Williams. Yeah, again, Eno just hasn't looked all that good running the ball, just like King
Would
Jim
you
Conner.
play the second half of the Chicago bet? Would you play Khalil Herbert over Eno Benjamin with no James Conner?
I think so.
I
think I would. Yeah, I think I would do it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
happening, man. Montgomery's unrestricted free agent too, right? Yeah, he's going to be off this squad next year.
It's Khalil Herbert time, man. Said at the beginning of the year, Khalil Herbert better fit for his offense. Looks better, period.
Try to buy low in Dynasty. I don't know if people can, but you never know. Like, unfortunately, people's seasons may be over in Dynasty. It's time to kind of look forward. If somebody has Herbert, that's in a good spot.
I'm going to counter argument real quick for you. If you buy low, yes, but in Dynasty, I'm going to counter argument real quick and say I would also consider selling high, depending on who you're talking to, because running backs in Dynasty, it's going to be like this, man. Like David Montgomery, yeah, sure, he's gone. Khalil Herbert, but guess what? Michael Carter last year. What if the Bears come into this draft and they draft somebody in the second round and they just want Khalil Herbert to be the complementary piece? I'm just saying that's how quickly running backs just in Dynasty, If you could set, like, so I would. If you can get Khalil Herbert as an RB3 in Dynasty, do it. Absolutely, 100% I agree with you, because he could be the lead next year, just like Michael Carter could have been. But if you're having somebody with that thought process, and now they're on the Khalil Herbert side of like, ooh, maybe Khalil Herbert's like RB14. Be like, see ya, goodbye.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, right? Because I remember on draft day here on this network, when you joined us, it's like we had to pour one out for Michael Carter. We just had to.
I think
we liked him as a running back.
Out too. I actually think I did.
You actually did. It's always, I always like to rotate through these backs and flip them like just pancakes. I mean, the shelf life for these guys it's just too short, right? It just happens in a second. If you can get yourself a young wide receiver,
if you can get RB1 value for Dameon Pierce in Dynasty right now, do it.
Yes.
Like this is the. So anyway, let's talk about Deonta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. We talked about him on Monday. Hubbard, Chuba Hubbard.
I called him that too. I think
Hubbard?
It's just
you called him Hubbard because it's the Chuba, and it's like it gets you
twice last week.
ties.
And the second time I did it, I was like, "Oh my god!" I was so frustrated. But now this is hilarious. I have to go back and chop them both up like from different shows.
Chubba Hubbard. I'm gonna call him the wrong thing. Chubba Hubbard.
It's hilarious, man.
So he's back. We talked about this on Monday in case anybody missed it. Is that Deonta Foreman 2 weeks ago was in that 40% role of being the pass catching option. Hubbard was in the lead. And then last week with no Hubbard, Foreman was the lead, got the majority of work, looked great for the second week in a row, but again, only on third down, second down and long, and passing downs was about 40% of the snaps. Hubbard could step back into that. So we're starting Foreman. Foreman looks better. Yeah. Foreman is a top 20 running back. End of sentence. The question comes down to, is Hubbard in play as a flex running back?
I think he's in playing deep leagues.
Okay.
That's it.
You don't think Panthers against the Bengals, they're going to have to pass some more anyway?
They might, or maybe the Bengals look like trash again on offense without their guy.
What was with the Bengals and the Raiders in Week 8? Like, did they know they think they were on buys?
I mean, just it's more, I think, disappointing from a Raiders standpoint that this is a team that desperately needed a win. They were top 5 in offense heading into the week, and they went into, you make excuses all you want that everyone was, sick and flu and injury and the early start for a West Coast team. But to me, that was the most disappointing performance maybe of the year for a squad to go into New Orleans and with no pieces in the secondary, a lot of missing pieces to only trap. They only passed midfield. You said it right on Monday was when Carr was on the bench.
The last
4-minute mark,
and it was
almost an NFL record, wasn't it?
It was going to be the 4th time in NFL history a team has never had a single play in the opponent's territory.
Crazy. And I could just give a pass maybe for the Bengals without Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and company, but no, I don't know. Chuba Hubbard, I would play Drake over him. Oh man, it's so disgusting, but I probably would play AJ Dillon and Darrell Henderson over him. Even though
I would play him over AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon for me is basically useless unless Aaron Jones gets hurt at this point.
I know it's true. Would you buy low on him just in like a deep
league
where you need a back?
Let me make this. I have Dillon over Hubbard. If I'm going for the safe play, I would play Hubbard. If I'm going for the ceiling, I would play Dillon.
Okay. Yeah. You just assume. Yeah, it does. And you shouldn't assume anything when it comes to this Green Bay team, but you would assume that maybe they run the rock.
I
think they figured it out last week.
How about the fact that the Bears got their quarterback help and the Packers didn't?
Unbelievable, man.
Another enormous amount of help, but we're going to talk about that.
It's something. They tried.
It's something. You brought up the Chiefs. Pacheco was the starter before the bye. It resulted in about a third of the opportunities, as it has been. McKinnon led in snaps, although Clyde Edwards-Helaire led in value. So Pacheco coming out of the Chiefs bye. By the way, Andy Reid never loses after the bye. Pacheco, what are you doing with him? Is he the starter over Edwards-Helaire? Like rankings wise, is it Pacheco, Edwards-Helaire, and then? Well, I mean, we know McKinnon's at the bottom. He's getting the most snaps, but the littlest usage. Isn't this just basically the Commanders? Pacheco is Gibson, not exact same roles. Pacheco is Brian Robinson.
I would say, yeah. EH
and Edwards-Helaire is Gibson. So does that mean we should be starting Edwards-Helaire and Gibson over Brian Robinson and Pacheco? You got all that?
So. Yeah. And McKinnon is
the little math
McKissick,
graphics.
and I could see the bubbles and the players next to each other, and I don't like any of them. I would say that I would start CEH over Pacheco.
Okay, would you start Gibson over Brian Robinson? Because I have Gibson over Brian Robinson.
Yeah, I would. And I wouldn't drop Robinson. People are dropping Robinson. Guys, like, just don't get crazy here dropping these running backs. We've seen so many times that things happen so quickly in the NFL. Gibson goes down, all of a sudden Robinson's touching the ball 20-plus times. Like, you just can't do it. I'm seeing Robinson dropped in a ton of formats this morning.
Here's what I will say.
Just don't drop him.
Here's what I brought this up on the local Wavy Fox show last night. And I said, sit down when you listen to this, but please listen to the entire thing. Depending on your buys, because there are 16 months on buy, depending on your situation, I might eat a 0 and I might eat the loss. You have to be a winning team. You have to know you're a playoff contender. But what it comes down to is if you have, and I'll give you the example. Somebody asked about this in the comments of the rankings column this week. They are 6-2. They would have to drop Deontay Johnson to fill their starting lineup. And I said, I'll eat the 0 and take, because you're 6-2. And you can't drop Deontay Johnson. Now, if you're in a 10-team league and it's like, do I drop Pickens for Garrett Wilson? Okay, fine. If it's comparable, fine. If you have to make multiple moves, because here's the thing, too. What's on waivers? Are they boom-bust options? Are we talking about picking up Isaiah McKenzie? But if it comes down to dropping a talent like that and you know you're good, now, I'm not doing it if you need a win. You can't do this at 3-5. You can't do this at 4-4. But if you're a winning team and this is the 1 week, like you have 4 guys on a bye, this is the 1 week you're taking a loss, I would eat the 0 in my lineup. Yeah,
I hear you. I would do it too. This is the time of the season where good players get dropped. And
Jiggles just said that. It's where you check your.
Oh, yeah.
I always say this is the biggest time. If your waivers already ran and they haven't yet, look at who got dropped. This is one of the biggest weeks to be like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody dropped blank.
So, for example, you guys are going to. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson's the most dropped player in Yahoo. Wan'Dale Robinson.
There you go.
One bad game. That's it. One bad game. Giants didn't do anything really to pick up a wide receiver. Dulcich is a guy that's been dropped as well. He's on bye. I'm interested in him. I'm going to try to grab
Sutton's
him.
Getting dropped.
Like,
He's been miserable, but Jerry Jeudy had a 2-game miserable stretch earlier this year. There'll be good games left.
The schedule lightens up for the Broncos.
Russell Wilson has one of the, not that I'm excited about Russell Wilson, but he has one of the best schedules down the stretch.
He does. Yeah, the Broncos receive, and that wasn't why I took them. Things changed pretty quickly, but that's why I held on and I was willing to buy low. Not so much on Russell, but Cortland. And Jerry Jeudy stuck around. He wasn't traded, so it's a good schedule for moving forward. Yeah, scan your waiver wire. You could block people. People are desperate looking for quarterbacks, looking for tight ends. 6 teams on bye. There's a lot of strategic things that you can do this week.
Let's talk wide receivers. Keenan Allen looks to be back. Didn't practice, quote unquote. But that was
I see it.
Yeah, it's he's supposed to be back. Here's the biggest thing. I said this before, and Austin Eckler said it too, Chris. That's what matters, right? It doesn't matter what Jake Ciely says. It matters what Austin Eckler says. Austin Eckler said, if you're smart, you are picking up Josh Palmer everywhere. What he didn't really get into, and I know what he's talking about because I said this very thing in the waivers, is we were waiting for Josh Palmer to replace Mike Williams because he's an outside wide receiver. DeAndre Carter is the slot option who was replacing Keenan Allen and has some big play upside. But Josh Palmer is a little bit miscast in that role alongside Mike Williams. He now takes the Mike Williams role. I am super excited for Josh Palmer, and I have Josh Palmer inside my top 30 this week.
Yeah, I agree. He was dropped because of the concussion. If you go back and look at just his snaps played, there's one game where he played 58% of the snaps. He was dealing with an ankle injury. That's the outlier. This guy's going to be on the field a ton over the next few weeks. I would imagine he's, even this week, even Keenan, if he's active, we'll probably see Joshua Palmer play almost 100% of the snaps, run the most routes on the squad. I wonder if he does. He probably will be used a little bit differently, right? He's got like a 6.1 ADOT. He probably will be used differently as a field stretcher. I'm excited for him.
Where he exceeds. Yeah. So I have, just to give you an idea, I have Dobbs, Thielen, Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Rondale Moore, Devin Duvernay, Brandin Cooks in order. Sound about right?
Yeah, sounds about right. I think I like Palmer out of all those guys that you mentioned the most.
Speaking of one of those names I mentioned, Brandin Cooks did not get traded. His tweet cryptically did not sound happy about it. It was like I don't know if he was pulling a line from Game of Thrones or exactly what that was, but he wasn't really happy about it. Do we keep starting Brandin Cooks? Like, I mean, honestly, if we didn't know Brandin Cooks was the human being Brandin Cooks, we wouldn't be starting him, right?
I don't think we would be. I mean, the offense is atrocious. Davis Mills has really taken a step back. And guess who Brandin Cook is going to have to deal with this week? Tomorrow. Darius Slay.
For the secondary, Bradbury, the Eagles.
Bradbury.
Which, by the way, congratulations on having the best defense in the last 5 years. All of a sudden, like, let's just adding more pieces.
Well, I think I saw a stat yesterday. Number one passer rater was Slay, and number 2 was Bradbury. I mean, that's your 1-2 corners. I mean, it's phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie, I love it. I get more excited about a defense, a nasty defense, than an offense. I mean, before they had Slay, the Eagles' secondary is trash. But yeah, Cooks, what are you gonna do?
What you do?
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? So speaking of, let's make a list. Let's keep going. I already told you I'm assuming you would not start Cooks in front of any of those. Duvernay, Rondale Moore, Curtis Samuel, Palmer, Thielen, Dobbs.
No.
Juju.
No.
Okay. Then let's keep going behind Brandin Cooks. Maybe I need to move Brandin Cooks down.
Our poor guy, Brandin Cooks. We just like him. We like him as a player, but man, he's wasted here in Houston this year.
100%. Brandin Cooks or facing the Bills, Garrett Wilson.
I may go Garrett Wilson there. You know, he was okay last week against the Pats. Massive underdogs as well. They're not using Elijah at all. What a waste.
Why didn't you trade him away?
Targets. I know.
There are three trade situations that made zero sense. Not the ones that why didn't the Packers trade for somebody, blah, blah, blah. 3 trade. Kareem Hunt going nowhere. Brandin Cooks going nowhere. And Elijah Moore going nowhere.
Yeah. I just get the picks. Like, I just don't understand it. If you're the Jets, cut your losses. I'm sure teams were lowballing them with the offers, but if you could have gotten a second, I mean, I'd imagine if they were offered a second, I would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. Whatever. Cut your losses, get a second pick. You're still rebuilding as a squad. You like the direction you're going. Get a pick. Same thing with the Cleveland Browns. You got a really good third running back in Ernest Johnson.
Fourth rounder was offered. Like they said, they would have taken a fourth rounder for Kareem Hunt. You tell me not one team out there, not one.
And how about the report that the Rams offered, basically what San Fran offered and more for CMC?
There's one for you. Why didn't the Rams offer a third or a fourth for Kareem Hunt? Fix your situation.
Yeah, that would have been a really good landing spot, I think, for Kareem Hunt.
All right, so let's keep going because we're on the Brandin Cooks conversation.
Going. Yeah,
Brandin Cooks or Darnell Mooney?
Chicago against Miami? I think I play Mooney.
How concerned are you for the first game of Chase Claypool?
Yeah, I don't think I play him.
No, you're not playing Claypool, but you're also not concerned about Mooney for the first game, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not super concerned. I like Fields has been pretty good lately. A lot of it has been his rushing ability. He's really running around a lot lately, but he's looked more capable.
Do you think Claypool could be the more valuable wide receiver from week 10 plus than Darnell Mooney with the Bears?
I think so, because I think now I don't fully trust this Bears organization and the coaching staff, but Claypool's an interesting player because there's a lot that they can do with him. You know, he could be a field stretcher. They can line him up in the slot. You can do some bubble screens with him. You can do some end around. So I think he's more of a guy. I think he's a guy that may have more touches in the offense.
And that's where I'm going. I don't think Claypool's that great. I think he's a wide receiver 3 in the NFL. Not fantasy, 3 in the NFL. He's the best as a 3. The Pittsburgh Steelers just showed they drafted George Pickens and then said Chase Claypool is our 3. Haha, you got to announce that pick, Claypool. But with the Bears, certain teams, he would be the 2. He'd be the 2 on the Texans. He'd be the 2 on any certain. Probably be the 2 right now. I love some Terrace Marshall as a deep stash. You know that. I've been Terrace Marshall since he was drafted. But he could be the 2 on a lot of teams. He'd be the 2 on the Giants. But that being said, this situation, I actually think could be more valuable where I think Claypool is like a fringe wide receiver 2, high end 3, because the touches will be more consistent. Mooney is like that Deshaun Jackson, where he's a wide receiver 3. One week you might get 15, 1 week you might get 2.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I agree with everything.
All right, so let's keep going. Brandin Cooks or Zay Jones?
I think it's a fun little revenge spot for Zay, I guess.
Having conversation.
I know
here.
it's crazy. I think I would draw the line there with Cooks, But I do think this is a bounce back spot for Trevor Lawrence and, the Jags. I think, I gave some advice for somebody in a deep league. Marvin Jones is obviously a deep league and, hurt at the wide receiver position. I think that Trevor Lawrence should be able to, even watching Andy Dalton last week, we crapped all over the Raiders offense, but Andy Dalton was able to kind of throw the ball around. A lot of it was to Alvin Kamara, but there was really limited options for Andy Dalton in that game. And he was able to kind of pick apart this Raiders secondary, which is just absolutely pathetic.
You tried to gloss over the fact that you said revenge game in there. I caught it. I heard it. I heard you I heard you throw that.
I think in that point I would just go Cooks. Like the Eagles are 14-point favorites here. Yes, he has to deal with Darius Slay. Slay shut him down in the Super Bowl when he was a member of the Pats, knocked him out of the game. Like it's going to be an issue to have to deal with Slay again. But there are things that they could do maybe to get Cooks away from him and have. Who else is catching passes there for them this week? Tomorrow? Who? Nico Collins is still dealing with a groin injury. Phil Dorsett.
Well, then let me keep going.
Pierce or Damian Pierce probably going to catch 6 balls out of the backfield. Rex Burkhead another 6. Like who's catching passes? Somebody has to.
The next one on the list. The next one on the list. The last 2 games, the rapport has finally been there. Allen Robinson and Matthew Stafford are on the same page finally. He's looked decent. Here's the concern here. Assuming Cooper Kupp is okay. Because if no Cooper Kupp, I mean, it's kind of the Kenyon Drake situation. We're forced to move up Allen Robinson and kind of play him just because of the volume upside. But Cooper Kupp out there, I don't know if people have seen this, but the Buccaneers defense, granted, they've played some mismatch receivers like the Chiefs spread it around. The Packers spread it around. They faced them. They faced Atlanta. But all that being said, still, if you look at some of the names they have faced, they haven't given up a 20-point score yet this year to wide receivers. They haven't even allowed a 100-yard receiver yet this year. There's only been 2 that have caught over 73 yards. And those are lead receivers. Those aren't even the secondary option. So all I'm presenting that as is I'm going Cooks over Allen Robinson, but would you say Allen Robinson or Cooks?
I would go Cooks over Allen Robinson too. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. I think that Allen Robinson's very touchdown dependent. I don't know if Cooks may be as well, but I think Robinson has a better chance of scoring a touchdown this week, but I think Cooks will have more volume. I think he's got a better chance.
All right, well, the last one on this making a list, who I think is more droppable than Cooks is, and I said so 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then the week after, and then again this week, whenever that might be, because they don't pass. And Damiere Byrd and occasionally Kyle Pitt. Drop Drake London. I said there's only 2 or 3 rookie wide receivers you can use, and London's not one of them. Brandin Cooks over London, right? You're dropping London before Brandin Cooks, right?
Yeah. It's another team that has a really good schedule here in the second half, but whatever.
I mean, it doesn't even matter.
They're not going to make the quarterback switch, are they? Because they are leading the NFC South.
Marcus Mariota, for fantasy purposes, is a QB1.
Yeah, especially with some of the QBs on bye this week, right? Dak
would you drop Cooks for Duvernay?
Man, there's a lot of Cooks droppable. I don't think that I would, because the Ravens just want to throw to tight ends and run the ball. Likely is an interesting candidate this week as well. I know that game's on Monday. Are we going to get any news on Friday about Mark Andrews? Probably not, but Likely might play regardless of Andrews.
Yeah, I think Likely is intriguing for some 12 sets that they like to run. I think the thing there as well is I think DeMarcus Robinson's a serious threat to Duvernay. It's a different profile wide receiver that Lamar Jackson's turned to when needed. I'm not saying like go crazy DeMarcus Robinson. I'm just saying,
Yeah, deeply. So, I think Duvernay is just like a gadget type of guy, and he is scoring touchdowns, and they're finding a way to get him the ball, but he's not going to be a big volume guy.
So if you had to fall backwards in a trust fall, and one of these 2 wide receivers had to catch you, is DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin more back into your trust circle to catch you?
DJ Moore. I think both are kind of in there, but I really we talked about it on the show.
DJ Moore didn't hit till late last week.
He didn't, but he still got some looks. He had a bad drop or 2,
right?
But he still got some looks. PJ Walker's second in the NFL over the last 2 weeks in air yards. Yeah, hey man, this offense may be better with PJ Walker under center, and crazy, right? They traded their best player away.
And the Commanders are better with Tyler Heineke. Told you that. Told you that last offseason. I will victory about that one.
Yeah, you should. And I was with you, right? Poor Carson Wentz, but it's just.
Heineke's reckless, unfortunately, and is going to lose games for them because of it. But
But
we're talking
he makes
fantasy.
things happen.
Yes.
Yeah, he throws to Terry, so it's great news. You're seeing other guys. Obviously, Dotson's not in the lineup, but Curtis Samuel is taking a massive downtick since Carson Wentz has been out, and Terry McLaurin is getting targeted. He's scoring touchdowns. It looks great. There's a rapport there. But I really like what I've seen from DJ. Just targets are there, air yards are there. He leads the NFL in air yard percentage, of his teams. That's like almost 50%. He's really and I like Terrace Marshall as well. I think it's pretty great to see, to be honest, over the last 2 weeks to see him be used, right?
I'm a fan. Go back to my draft profile for everybody that doesn't know what I'm referencing. Size, speed, strength combination, great wide receiver, athletically gifted. The comparison I drew was Marquise Lee, who came out of college, same problem as Terrace Marshall.
Yeah.
They were so much better than their opponents that they got away with being lazy in routes and positioning and just clean up your technique.
Yeah.
And that's what it's taking time. But Terrace Marshall next year, if they have a good quarterback, I PJ Walker, but I'd look out for Terrace Marshall. One more wide receiver before I real quick want to hit on tight ends and quarterbacks before we get out of here, just to help everybody try a bit. Yeah. Is Romeo Doubs the Kenyon Drake of wide receivers? Is it is because there's nobody left and we're going to stick Doubs back into our lineups? We're ready to get bitten because so few people were using him last week because of what happened the 3 games prior. Is Dobbs Drake? Is Drake Dobbs? Finkel
probably.
Einhorn?
Yeah, probably. I think if there's no Alan Lazard, I think you can play him. But if Alan Lazard returns this week, and then he's probably back to being the Drake, and you hate him.
Oh wow, Kevin White shout out from Nathan. And man, there's this.
Oh,
what it could have been.
Wow.
Oh my God, Kevin White.
Oh my goodness, top pick. Yikes.
Do you have a favorite?
Rule's out to lunch, so that's what I say about Terrace Marshall.
Streaming tight end. Do you have a favorite one for this week?
I still think Evan Ingram is still out there. I know.
I pointed him out, and somebody even said I don't think he's a streamer anymore. I was like, but he is.
I think he's a starting tight end.
He is, but nobody wants to use him or stream him.
And again, a good spot this week. I think he's a starting tight end that you could just roll with the rest of the season. And he's been getting some targets. I mentioned Likely. Yeah, I think Likely's still pretty interesting.
If you had to pick one, Kyle Pitts or Taysom Hill.
I'm still playing Pitts over Taysom Hill. I'm just whatever.
I'm not.
I'm just doing it. He finally had. I lost in your flex league by 2 points, but Pitts finally had a day. It's I've been playing.
Albert even pointed out Cordell Patterson's back.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Either the offense is about to unlocked or everything's about to go haywire in that offense.
It's a
last one
spot for him to come back to against the Chargers.
Last one before we get out of here. I'm going to give you the answer I gave to somebody. We were talking about circle of trust. Justin Fields has been great, but rushing touchdown in the last 2 games to those 20-point games. He's passing a little bit more into the 20s, but somebody asked me Geno versus Fields, and I'll say they're not too dissimilar. They're both in that conversation of they need the Tannehill efficiency from 2 or 3 years ago where they need to throw 2 touchdowns per game. Maybe you can get away with 1 if they score on the ground. But if I want the ceiling, if I want to know I can get QB5 or QB20, I'll play Fields. If I want to know that I'm probably checking in somewhere around QB 10 to 14 every single week, I'll just play Geno.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to play Fields this week over Trevor Lawrence, I think. Even though I said that Trevor Lawrence is in a good spot, but Fields has got that rushing floor.
Fields higher too.
Maybe they unleash him a little bit. Why not?
They unlock
a couple weapons now all of a sudden the offense. Maybe they unleash him.
All right, so that's week 9 ranks. Go drop over and check out the top 25 N64 game ranks. I wanted to keep going. I didn't even stop at 25. There's so many good games.
Big 64 guy. I was all super.
That was the wheelhouse days for our age, growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But over at The Athletic, if you click on the ranks and you're not a subscriber, you'll get a discount at some point. So check that out. Check out FTN, code ALLIN, 20% off for Meaney, at Chris Meaney, at All In Kid. We'll be on the other sides probably next week. Who knows? Maybe. Meaney stops screwing things up there in Canada. We'll see you on Monday.
Peace.